Hello, everyone. We still have people logging in, so we'll give them just a minute or two, and then we'll get started. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Link Center for this shared learning group focused on the topic of how relationships influence development and sense of self. I'm going to go over a few housekeeping items while we get started. The session will be recorded, and the recording and the transcript will be made available on our website. We welcome you to revisit the content yourself and to share it with others. Attendees cannot see the names of other attendees, and all attendees are muted. Please use the chat function in Zoom to communicate with other attendees and with the host during the webinar. You can use the chat by clicking on chat at the bottom of your screen. And be aware that your name will appear if you make a comment in the chat. And you can always change your display name if you'd like by clicking on those three little dots next to your name and selecting rename. We will have representatives from the Link Center watching the chat and responding throughout the session today. And if you'd like to submit a question or a comment privately to the host and panelist, you can do that with the chat function or by clicking on the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. We have live captioning and ASL interpreters present today. We will be spotlighting the active speaker and the ASL interpreter throughout the webinar. If you click on View on your Zoom screen, you can change the way you see the panelists and speakers. And if you're having any trouble with your view, you can let us know that in the chat and we'll try to help. At this time, I'm going to hand the floor over to Dr. Stacy Nonamaker, who's going to get us started. Stacy, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Stephanie, and hello, everyone. As Stephanie said, I'm Stacy Nonamaker. I'm with the National Association of State Developmental Disabilities Directors. We are the lead organization for the Link Center, and we're very happy to be hosting these shared learning groups this quarter. As Stephanie mentioned, we're going to be talking about relationships and how they influence development and sense of self, calling it from childhood to community. If you haven't checked out our website, we are very excited to be providing lots of information and resources around how we can better support people with co-occurring conditions. So as we like to say, we would love for you to check us out if you haven't already. You can use the link that's on the screen, the QR code, or Stephanie put the link in the chat for you all. But we say check us out and check back often. Today, you'll be hearing from a lot of the partners who help make this work possible. It really does take a village, and we are very grateful to be working alongside other people who are also looking to improve mental health access for people across the lifespan. So now you know a little bit about the Link Center, and if you want to know more, again, please go on our website. But we'd love to hear from you all and see who's joining us today. So if you could just take a moment in the chat, introduce yourself, where you're dialing in from, and any organizations or affiliations you may have. We'd love to see who's joining us today. So I don't know how many of you are joining us who have been with us before, so you probably know what to expect out of this shared learning group or what you'll get out of this shared learning group. But for those of you who are just joining, and as a reminder to those of you who have been with us before, we host 4 meetings per quarter And we do one for direct support professionals, which we've already done today, one for clinical professionals, which this particular session is targeted to clinical professionals. Tomorrow we'll be doing a session for people with lived experience, and then another session with families of people with lived experience. The topic is the same every quarter for all four of the meetings, all four of the shared learning groups. And the content and the information is very similar. We do modify it or adapt it to make it tailored for each audience. So we may change some of the exercises, the talking points, or the materials to target the audience that we're speaking to. The content that you'll see today, and you'll see throughout the presentation that we have, this is a collaboration, and we have many partners here at the Link Center, and they include partners that have lived experience. So you'll be hearing from one of our steering committee members today. You will be hearing from other partners who may be researchers or people who work on policy issues. And as Stephanie said, we do record and transcribe our shared learning groups. And all of the materials will be available after the meeting. So jump up on our website after the meeting, and you can get all the materials and information there. And we do encourage you to share anything that we share with you, share our website. We're really trying to build this community of people who are looking to better support individuals with co-occurring conditions. So some of the goals and outcomes that we have with the shared learning group today is that we're going to share with you as the Link Center things that we have been learning, things that we've been thinking about related to how relationships influence development and sense of self. We're hopefully going to impart on you the importance and the impact of relationships, how they impact our lives. We're going to share some resources. And then we're also going to want to hear from you. That's the shared part of shared learning groups, right? So we're going to do that by way of a group exercise. So hopefully you'll continue to hang out with us and help us think through and hear from you all how you're thinking through the work that you do about community engagement, relationships, belonging, right? Because that helps us as the Link Center use our resources to elevate certain things that we may not know about, and also take a call to action for things that we could be thinking more targeted about in the development of other resources and information for the field. As I mentioned, you're going to be hearing from a steering committee member in just a little bit here, but we are extremely grateful to have the work of the Link Center and the work that we do as partners guided by our steering committee. Our steering committee is comprised of 14 people with lived experience across the nation. And some of the things that they help us do is determine what topics and things we should be talking about during these shared learning groups, help us develop content for these shared learning groups. And early on, they really emphasize that it's important because of some of the topics that we talk about that we set some agreements at the beginning of all our shared learning groups. So I'm going to go through those to set the foundation for our time together today. The first one is take care of yourself, do what is necessary for your comfort and care. We should be gentle with ourselves and each other because sometimes this is hard work to do. We celebrate that we are all individuals from different backgrounds. We celebrate that we have shared experiences to learn from. And we know that we are each unique with our own experiences in this world. And finally, we're creating a space where we listen and share with open minds and kindness. We do not judge or blame others for what they share. Again, that's part of the shared learning group. So before I turn it over to today's presenters, and acknowledging that the way that we're going to be staging the content is really looking at clinical professionals as a supporter to people, and a supporter to individuals who, we believe in creating meaningful relationships can be hugely positively impactful on their lives. But for a moment, before we go into your supporter role and you put your supporter hat on, just to help us also understand where you all are coming from, we're asking you what we think is a simple question. And please put your answers in the chat. But what things are important to you in a relationship? Great. There's a ditto right in the beginning there. I'm seeing lots of trust, communication that goes both ways, respect, another respect, safety. Yeah, I'm feeling safe, reciprocity, respect, shared values, unconditional positive regard. These are all great. It's also fun as partners who are part of the shared learning group to compare across the different audiences that we speak to. And we're seeing a lot of the same themes around those things that are important to you in relationships that we saw earlier with the direct support professionals. So all of this is really helpful, and let's keep these things in mind as now we put on our supporter hat and we think about how we support people and how we create our relationship with people and how we support them in creating other relationships with people. So now I am very honored to turn the mic over to Victoria Villalobos-Guiardo, who is one of our steering committee members, who's going to talk a little bit more about why we thought it was important to bring up the topic of relationships. Victoria, turn it over to you.
Hello, I'm Victoria Villalobos-Guiardo. Like she said, I'm a member of the steering committee, and I have quite a lot to say about this. So let's go to the next slide. So what do we mean by relationships? So from the moment we are born, every human will form all types of different relationships throughout their life. Some of these are parental, mother and father, familial, that could be uncles, aunts, grandparents, friends, people that you meet throughout your life, romantic, potentially your partner, and professional, care providers. And next slide. So why are relationships important? Like everyone said, each relationship has different levels of trust and comfort. There are some things that you might be willing to tell your friends that you're not very comfortable telling a parent, such as, nobody wants to talk to their parents about their romantic lives or their, more adult things. Nobody wants to talk to their parents about that. But you can talk to your friends about that. Likewise, there are different levels of support that you can only get from a care provider and not friends and family. As much as friends, family, as much as we want to give our loved ones this type of care and support, there is just not possible for us, and we need help from a professional like a care provider. And it's very important to have a variety of different relationships to fill all these different needs. Next slide. How do different types of relationships impact who you are and who we become? So as humans, We are born as blank slates, and every single interaction in our lives contributes to the people who we are today. Children, especially, are in a critical developmental period where every interaction, even the ones that seem mundane, mold who they are as people. I'm pretty sure everyone here has a childhood memory that may seem pretty mundane, but has stuck with them way throughout adulthood. These interactions will shape your views on how different relationship types work. Next slide. So, when a child is fed positive relationships, it leaves them feeling safe, comfortable, and confident with who they are as people. When a child is, not worried for their well being, when they know that they can trust their loved ones, then that leads to, a greater sense of self esteem. They feel better about themselves, they feel like they are people. When a child is fed negative relationships, they become scared, withdrawn, and insecure. When a child is constantly taught that every single bad action they do is amplified and that their good actions don't matter, it makes you feel like not a person. This is very true. I've experienced this myself. These interactions with childhood shape who you are as an adult. Like I said, if a child's punished for every negative emotion, they may never want to share how they truly feel, and they hold back a lot of information that can be helpful to professionals and their treatment, because they figure, if nobody in my life has listened to me up until now, why should I believe that my care provider is going to do the same? Next slide. Why is it important to nurture relationships with people who have co-occurring and multiple needs? People with dual diagnoses are just like you in these senses, but the relationships we carry have a deeper effect, which is much harder to alter once the views are there. Autism, for one thing, has very, very rigid views. So, like myself, I used to be hospitalized quite a lot. And when I had constant bad experiences in hospitals, that my autism really made it super rigid in my mind that hospitals are not a safe place. Hospitals are dangerous. I don't like them, and they're not here to help me. Someone can have a lifetime of positive relationships, but it only takes one negative relationship to completely taint their view on an entire relationship type. And it is possible to heal a tainted view after a bad experience, but it takes a lot of time, trust, effort. It's better to prevent these from ever happening. I'm going to share a story about one of my hospitalizations. I had a nurse, her name was Tanya. I had previously been hospitalized, and they obviously didn't care for my needs at all. And I could feel a panic attack coming up. And generally, when people are in mental hospitals and they want to avoid different groups, it's generally treated as avoidance, and you're not taken seriously. You're told to just continue it anyways. But I have dual diagnoses, so this wasn't a matter of avoidance. It was a matter of my autism being overwhelmed. I told Tanya, please let me go sit in the quiet room for a little bit. I can feel a breakdown coming, and it's not going to be good. I don't want to embarrass myself in front of everyone. And Tanya did something rare. She actually listened to me. She let me go in the quiet room where I did proceed to have a bad mental health moment. But honestly, the fact that she listened to me and didn't question me really helped a lot. She didn't ask me, "Are you avoiding this? Are you okay, so and so?" Because let's be honest, sometimes when we're hounded with questions, it just makes your overwhelmedness even worse. So she just listened. She was straightforward. She got me what I needed, and that helped me a lot change my perspective about hospital workers and nurses and such. Thank you. Next slide.
Thank you, Victoria. I always appreciate you sharing your experiences, and I think that from the story that you just told, it was incredibly powerful to show that that one relationship, that interaction that you had with her really changed the way that you thought about hospitals moving forward. So appreciate you sharing that with us, Victoria. So now I'll turn it over to Nancy Thaler and Kelly Miller to talk a little bit more about some of the work that we're doing at the Link Center that instigated this topic and some other things that we want to share.
Victoria, thank you so much. It's very moving to hear you talk about the nitty-gritty of relationships and what's important. So thank you for doing that. I'm only going to do a little talk here. Part of this discussion about relationships came out of the work we are doing at the Link Center, focused on children who have mental health needs, and we mean kids who are getting a lot of trouble, and people don't know how to support them, and sometimes they're at risk of going into institutions, or often they are, sometimes restraint and seclusion. So we, this past year, we went out and asked everybody and read everything we could and did surveys, had meetings and focus groups. Some of you were on them to figure out why are these kids complex? What makes them complex? And how can we help them? And so we are coming to the end of that first year and are getting ready to write a report about what children who have complex mental health needs, what's missing? Why is their behavior so extreme and challenging? So we go to the next slide. So we learned a bunch of things from this project. Actually, we learned a lot of things. And I like to frame them as we learn things that are important for people to have a good life. And the number one most important thing is being with people that we like, that they like, and that are important to us, having at least one person, but hopefully more people who you can, as you said in the chat, trust and that respect you. And that without that, it's pretty hard for people to have a good life. So it's really important to help every single person find that person or those people and help them stay in touch with them. The other thing we learned pretty clearly is doing things every day that make us feel good at home and in the community is important to having a good life. So not being made to do things we don't like to do, not having people say, well, you can only do that if you behave or if you fold your laundry, but just having a life that is as full as possible of bubble baths and hikes in the woods and going to the amusement park or whatever those things are that people really, that make them happy, that make them feel good and make them feel they need to have a lot of that in their life. The other thing is that families and helpers, direct care staff, and Victoria gave a great example of when the person just listened to her, what a huge difference that made it for her. And so we need, the service system needs to help families and direct care staff and helpers understand what people need, learn how to read their signals and listen to what the person's saying. So people need help learning how to do that. The other thing we learned about folks with really extreme behavior and lots of turmoil in their life is that it's very good if we know how the brain works and how our brains are useful to managing our feelings. And we don't learn that. We don't learn that in school. We don't learn that in any training things. But if you do learn it, if you know that in your brain, you can change it, you can make it be aware when you're upset, you can talk to your brain about calming down. So learning about the brain is something we have to do. And the last thing is, and it's not the last thing, it's one of 5 things. All of these are really important. Although number 1 is relationships. But the last thing in this list is people getting the medical care they need to feel healthy. And not just medical care, wherever they live and whoever they live with has to help people stay healthy. Good food, good exercise, good air, no, poisons and contaminants in the air, so that their bodies and their digestion, their posture can relax and feel healthy, well fed, and really positive. So there are several different things we learned that people need to have in their life. And as I said, number one comes out clear as a bell. It's relationships with people that they trust, who respect them, as you all said in the chat box. Okay, I think the next slide might be Kelly.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so let's revisit the question that Victoria broached of why are relationships important? Next slide. If we're going to talk about relationships, then we should also talk about the lack of relationships, which can lead us to feel lonely. Loneliness is feeling alone or disconnected from others, and even a person, of course, who has a lot of friends can still feel lonely. Loneliness can affect our health and well-being. And sometimes there are circumstances in our lives that make it harder for us to connect with others, like not being physically well, not feeling well mentally, going to places that aren't inclusive or accommodating, lack of transportation, a language barrier, not having assistive technology or a phone, or individuals not having those options so that they can communicate with us. Um, and I think this is just thoughts from Kelly, but I do believe that sort of loneliness during childhood is just a different feeling. It's like one of those things that you just feel it in your bones. And like Victoria mentioned, sometimes something that might seem really mundane during your childhood actually sticks with you and has a lasting impact on your foundation as an adult and the choices you make in adulthood. And I just think about a time when I was a child, I went to the same elementary school for many years. And then the last few weeks of sixth grade, my family moved and had to finish sixth grade, like the last 3 weeks of it, in a new school and a new neighborhood with no one I knew. And I was surrounded by a lot of kids, and some were willing to befriend me. And my teacher was very nice, and but I felt super lonely. I felt very alone because I didn't have a connection to those folks, right? I was surrounded by people, yet I felt very alone. Come full circle, 40 plus years later, I am actually still very good friends with one of the girls in my sixth grade class at my new school who was willing to befriend me. So there was a silver lining there. But as Victoria mentioned, sometimes those things during childhood just really do stick with us. Next slide. The effects of loneliness really can be very significant on our health. There's research out there that shows that loneliness can have the same long-term health impacts as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Loneliness can increase the risk of premature death, it can shorten our lifespans. And having not good social relationships can be linked to greater risk of stroke and heart disease. Isolation can increase our risk for depression, anxiety, and even dementia. Uh, some of these effects of loneliness kind of can become circular or like a domino effect, where if you are depressed, then you might want to isolate from people. If you're isolated from people and you're depressed, you're maybe not making great decisions about taking care of yourself. Perhaps you're not allowing caregivers to have access to you, or you're not engaged with the community. So there can be sort of this circular dynamic that can happen sometimes for people. Next slide. So that's very gloom and doom, right? What in the world can we do to combat some of these things that loneliness can do to us? Well, one thing that's very, very important is, of course, relationships and meaningful relationships. So there's great value in safe, supportive, nurturing relationships. And a lot of the literature out there, when it talks about childhood and development, this is the phrase that's written in golden type: the safe, supportive, nurturing relationship, or SSNR, because we love to put acronyms to things. But research tells us that if if children have even just one safe, supportive, nurturing relationship with an adult, they're more likely to navigate challenging situations better. Positive relationships help kids do better in school. Obviously, having a good relationship with your teacher helps you to be more successfully socially and academically in school. Positive relationships help kids build better connections with others as they continue to grow into adulthood. There's a lot of information out there that says really the one most common thing that helps kids get through difficult times is having at least one safe, supportive, nurturing relationship with an adult. Compared to kids who have very few friends or no good friends, their self-esteem is lower. So having positive relationships leads to improved self-esteem. Improved self-esteem leads to seeking out and creating healthy relationships. So that's a nice circular pattern that can happen for kids. Next slide. This is just a diagram that kind of illustrates the different types of connections that we need. And we all need these, just maybe some to a different degree, more or less in different areas, but a relationship with yourself, knowing yourself. The intimate relationship doesn't need to be a physically intimate or romantic intimate relationship, but a relationship that is where you have a close confidant, a good bond with a sibling or a friend, but you kind of have like your person, that person who is your ride or die, your person. And then relational speaks to social relationships. This can be with peers, with direct care supports, with helping professionals, with other adults in your life as a child. And then the collective speaks to the need for connection with a sense of community or feeling being a part of something larger than yourself. And then we see this sometimes in spiritual or faith-based communities, and sort of just really recognizing the importance and the value of finding community. And that looks like different things for different people. Next slide. So different relationships are important to us at different stages in life. Like when we are a teenager or a child, we prioritize who we spend our time with and what we do much differently when we are an adult. I know for me, I no longer have FOMO or fear of missing out on really anything. But when I was a teenager, I didn't want to miss a party or a concert or a date or a movie. You know, I was willing to sacrifice sleep and everything, sacrifice doing my homework in order to go out and have fun because I didn't want to miss out on anything. And, for me now as an adult, there's no FOMO because that's shifted for me into valuing fewer relationships that are more meaningful and filled with more connectedness. So sometimes it's not a lack of relationships that make people feel lonely, it's the lack of meaningful relationships, lack of those connections that kind of fill your cup. And when we think about this, again, having close friends boosts self-esteem, and high self-esteem influences the quality of friendships. Can you think, why do you think that is? What do you think is happening in there between point A and point B of, I have good self-esteem, that means I'm more likely to have positive friendships? What do you think is happening out there between point A and point B? Why would that be? And if you would like to put some comments in the chat, we'd love to hear what you might think about that. Affirmations. So true. Yeah. Both that you tell yourself or that you're receiving from others in positive relationships. If you affirm, you feel affirmed and you know your self-worth, speaks to the fact that you're more likely to seek out healthy relationships. Yeah, knowing your own worth and your values. Yeah, knowing what is good for you and what is not good for you, and being willing to say so. brings a sense of belongingness. Yeah, absolutely. Which then, it's kind of like that belongingness then begets self-esteem, which begets hopefully good choices that lead to healthy relationships. Yeah. So someone in the earlier group today said, something about being able to set boundaries. And I thought that really struck me as being so insightful that, right, if you have some good self-esteem and you know your self-worth, you're willing to set those boundaries. And, when someone is mistreating you in a relationship, or you feel like the relationship is unhealthy for any reason, if you have good boundaries, then you're going to say something and you're going to, steer that relationship where it needs to go, whether it's out the door or, demoted to an acquaintance level. But sort of that all links with knowing your self-worth and having a sense of belongingness that is authentic, and speaks to, filling your cup and recognizing your value. Yeah, thank you for putting some thoughts in the chat. Let's go next slide. So here's a lovely picture. I did not draw these, so I can't take credit for the artwork. But let's talk just a little bit here about the impacts of the positive and the negative when it comes to relationships during development. So children and adolescents with low self-esteem, as we've kind of been talking about, are likely to experience less social support and more negative relationships over time. So that kind of emphasizes the importance of timely support to disrupt this cycle. So having someone who is a safe, stable, nurturing adult in their life to help them to navigate challenging relationships and to know their self-worth and to boost their self-esteem. The good news is, fortunately, most individuals gradually improve their self-esteem as they grow up and become adults. So thank goodness a certain degree of that is set on autopilot for many of us. But the way that this diagram works is sort of like along the way over during childhood and across our lifespans, we experience negative relationships and positive relationships. So negative interactions, positive interactions. It's like a balanced scale here with two sides. So experience that result in toxic stress, repeated chronic exposure to violence, poverty, maltreatment, those pile up on the negative side of the experience scale. Positive influences that can make stress tolerable, such as supportive relationships, skill building opportunities, opportunities to increase self-efficacy, having the chance to practice dealing with really hard things with the support of a person. Those things can kind of tip the scale the other way, right? They're going to balance out some of those negative things. So if you have these two, the good and the bad weighing each other out, we also have the fulcrum, or that, triangle in the middle of the teeter-totter. And that represents what the child comes to, comes with as their inner contents, sort of like what's their inner constitution, what is their self-esteem look like, what's their threshold for stress. So all of these things that kind of make up who we are is that fulcrum. The nice thing is that fulcrum can move, so it doesn't have to be fixed. Sometimes we can't control the positive and the negative things that happen to us, but we can control how we perceive them and how we deal with them. And that's the fulcrum. So being able to support children, build their self-esteem, make good choices, develop healthy patterns and relationships can help them move that fulcrum. So all of a sudden, that negative end of the scale is really hard to lift up, and the positive is now outweighing the negative. So again, this just kind of reiterates that whole important piece of having a safe, supportive, nurturing relationship with at least one adult in your life to navigate all of these things that life might throw at us. Next slide. So what are things that we can do as supporters? Next slide. And some of this, actually, much of the feedback on these next slides were sentiments that were shared from members of the steering committee about their experiences during childhood and relationships with adults and what they would have said to folks that they needed. So what do we need to do as adults in helping professions and in clinical settings to show up for people in a way that builds a safe, secure, nurturing relationship? Well, many of these are not going to blow your mind. It's pretty simple in many ways. Being genuine, sincere, and authentic. Being a support, not always having to be the solution. Being the person who says, I can't guarantee that, yeah, that this is going to be okay, but I'm here for you. I'm here to get through it with you step by step. Let's talk about it. Not always needing to be the rescuer, but coming alongside and being with the person, showing empathy, showing investment in the person's feelings, making sure individuals have choice when it comes to decisions in their life, doing active listening. You know, many of these things are the things that I'm sure you all do. The kicker here is maybe you're not thinking about how much impact you could be having in terms of people leaving their relationship with you and going out into the world and then seeking more positive relationships and making good choices to enter into relationships that are healthy for them. Let's go next slide. So what can we do to support people in making social connections or relational connections? Well, something that I think can be overlooked, particularly for kids who maybe have challenges communicating, or kids who are in the child welfare system, or children with complex needs, is there's not this like set routine of how do I check in with my friends and my family. And maybe that's a skill set that can be modeled or coached or taught or just built into a routine, particularly if there's a child who's living in like a residential setting or an out-of-home placement. Really making sure that there's some sort of routine on how you check in with friends and family, how you nurture a relationship, how you tend to a relationship. What does reciprocity look like in a relationship? And sometimes just setting a framework for that can be incredibly important and helpful. Checking in about relationship dynamics and having conversations about things that are going well and things that aren't going well. And keeping in mind that really the quality of interpersonal relationships that are formed between kids and helping professions kind of creates a big context for other supportive relationships that they have in the future, what they'll be looking for, and maybe what they won't be looking for, and what they'll need, and kind of understanding how to express their need to people. Next slide. And thinking about how do we support the creation of collective connections. Again, this can be things like spiritual or faith-based community engagement. The steering committee members really highlighted the importance of found family and the sense of community, connecting with other individuals who have similar life experiences. Can really be very powerful and fill some of those gaps if there isn't, if there aren't familial ties. And maybe if someone hasn't had the experience of finding a safe, supportive, nurturing relationship, finding that strength within found family and community can be just very influential and important for people, important for mental health and physical health too. Some of the steering committee members shared too that, during childhood, they didn't have great interactions with some adults. Many people experienced abuse or neglect. But what they found later on was that positive relationships helped to sort of heal that hurt that they experienced during childhood. And so that might look like an individual, or it might look like finding a sense of community somewhere also. And let's go on to the next slide. Nancy, I will turn it over to you to finish this final slide, and I just want to thank everyone for your time.
Great, thank you. We okay? Am I coming through okay?
Yep.
Great. This is about power, and very often we shy away from thinking about having power or having power over other people. But power is something we all have, everybody has, and we can do something with that power if we're aware of it and we're thinking about it. We have the power to make people feel really good. Anybody, right? Just saying thank you, or you look nice today, or you did a really good job at that, or it's wonderful to see you. All of those kinds of things are examples of using our power to make other people feel good. And we can also use our power to make other people feel not good. By telling them they didn't do a good job, or we don't like them, or they don't belong here. And we sometimes think that people who are in charge or administrators have power and we have no power. But the truth is we all have power. And supporters, family members, and care staff and supporters have enormous power to affect how somebody's life is. As this slide shows, you could use power to make somebody feel sad or lonely. And you see kids do this in school a lot. They make fun of each other and bully each other because they kind of like using their power. Only if they thought about it, they might not like it so much when they realize how the other person feels. In the other picture, this is an example of listening and sharing. And that just doesn't make the person feel good. The person there that's got their hands folded, and it makes them feel safe. And it makes them feel like there's somebody, like somebody cares about them. And this is using your power, sharing it with the other person. You have power. You don't have to make them feel bad so you feel important. You can help them feel good, and you both have power and you both feel important. You have the power to make them feel good, and they begin to have power because they feel safe and valued. And doing this means we have to think about it when we're with people. We have to see how they are responding to us. If I say something, does that person look relaxed? Do they look happy? Or do they look like they're on guard? And if they don't look good, then I better change how I'm behaving and how I'm acting and learn to find ways to make them feel safe and regarded and respected, so that they trust me. Next slide. I think that's it. That takes us into group exercises. And great.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nancy. And thank you for that.
And Max, I'm sorry. This is Deb, Dr. Pinels too. I just want to make sure that my video goes on to help you with the group exercise too. There we go. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. Hi, everybody. I know Max is going to start.
So, first of all, thank you for having me once again. I'll just quickly introduce myself for an accommodation. I'm Max Barrows, Outreach Director for Green Mountain Self-Advocates. And I'm just presenting a scenario for you today as part of this presentation. And so just for a brief descriptor for anyone who is, can't, see me well, I'm wearing a black tie with a white dress shirt with blue thin stripes. I'm a black man with black hair, wearing black headphones with a link center background for my screen. And I am going to do, along with Deb, who I will have introduce herself if you like.
Yep. Hi, everybody. I am Deb Pinels. I'm a psychiatrist. I'm a middle-aged, dark-haired woman with short hair. I wear glasses. I'm wearing a dark shirt today and a necklace with a large central circle bead on it. And I am the clinical consultant to the Link Center and very happy to join you and help Max with facilitation, so we can, once you hear about the exercise and the case, we can talk together about how we can help people foster good relationships and connections.
All righty, thank you. So what we're going to do is we're going to read you a scenario, and you'll also see it on your screen. And after we read the scenario, we will ask you a couple of questions as to how to go about the scenario. When you do so, please put it in chat, but if you want to say it out loud, feel free. Just raise your hand and we will call on you on screen. So without further ado, here we go with the group exercise. So the Welsleys live in rural Kansas and have been fostering children for about 5 years, since their own children are grown up and are out of the house. Recently, they were asked to foster a 12-year-old girl named Keisha. Keisha has lived in 9 different homes in 10 years. Her mother died of an overdose soon after Keisha was born, and her grandparents were unable to care for her due to their own medical needs. Keisha loves dogs and to draw. She says art is her favorite class. At home, Keisha is withdrawn, preferring to stay in her room alone. At home and school, she becomes verbally and physically aggressive when she is asked to do something she does not want to do. She also takes things that are not hers from classmates, stores, and the Welsleys. Martha Wellesley works part-time at the school, and Gene Wellesley has his own construction business. Their children and grandchildren visit once a week for family dinners. So our questions to you are, what are some opportunities that you can capitalize on for Keisha to build meaningful relationships? And how can you help Keisha build meaningful relationships?
So this is where we open it up for discussion and input. We had a really vibrant discussion both in the chat and at the last meeting with direct support professionals. And so now with our clinical group, we're hoping to hear, you're in a different role. So what are some opportunities that you can capitalize on for Keisha to help build meaningful relationships? We'd love to hear from you. Brittany Fenclau says, offer art therapy or suggest a group art project for the entire group, should she be open over time following a family dinner. That sounds great. That's really nice. I think art is a really good way for people to come together, and having a task that people can share helps build those connections and relationships. What other things are people thinking about?
Uh,
I know for me,
Cindy,
oh,
sorry, Cindy said it
okay.
brings a sense of belongingness, but
Oh, I missed that. Thank you, Max.
there's
Yep.
some above. Ashley
Oh, great.
says, know your own worth and values. And John says, affirmation.
Affirmations.
Affirmations is that's what I meant.
Yep. Yep. Well, yeah, I
Uh,
think that's a good one to, all of these are helping people feel their sense of self, um, and affirming them and helping people feel belonging. We have Brian who says play in all forms, art, music, Special Olympics, games, low stress activity with significant people of choice. Yeah, there was just a race in Boston here I think 1,000 people came to with for people with disabilities. So that kind of sport activity, that's always a good way to promote it. And frankly, as a provider, you may be busy in the clinic or have a clinical role, but being aware if there are those activities going around, having flyers, having signs up, that can be a way to help people know what's available. Um, Tim Tunner says pet and dog therapy. Is there a dog that she could take to the park to connect with other dog owners or people who like dogs? And somebody else said a therapy dog interaction. So
yeah,
that's great. You want to do Ashley's comment again, Max?
I can do the ones coming in.
Great.
Ashley says, art therapist that specializes in trauma, art classes taken together, reward system focused on earning her own art supplies, family art project. And Valerie says, use art as a communication tool, art journaling, express recent experience / relationship through sketching and painting.
Yeah, I love these ideas. I love these ideas.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to say?
Yeah, and then also in your role, it'd be helpful to hear from you and your roles. How can you, in your role, help Keisha build those meaningful relationships? Nancy's saying, figure out who in the family she likes the best and help that person figure out how to earn Keisha's trust so she feels safe.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yes, safety is going to be a very big issue for Keisha with her background. Feeling safe and comfortable and that sense of belonging that people had mentioned before are going to be really important.
I think figure out who in the family she likes the best and help that person figure out how to earn Keisha's trust so she feels safe. That's from Nancy. And then Nancy added as a place to start and to build on. Audria says family game time to develop relationships in a fun way. Did you get Tim's? I think Tim's, oh, there's two of them. I don't know if you got one.
A new one. Yeah. Do any of the family members' grandchildren like art? She could connect with them that way. That's another really good idea.
Mm-hmm. And the last one about dogs, I think from Tim. I don't know if you got that one or not. I may have jumped. Says she also seems to be.
Seems to like a lot of quiet time at home, so be careful not to try so hard to get her involved with other people, art dogs, that she ends up without much alone time. I think that's a really good point, Tim, is although we may want, a lot of busyness, that may not be what she wants and needs. And so really getting the availability, getting what she wants is going to be, and I think Stacy talked about that earlier, or some, in the prior presentations we heard about power differential. So we want to make sure that we're asking what is it that she wants in terms of relationships, what would be her sweet spot, so to speak, or her, what would be sufficient for her.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Do any of her family like, Tim says, do any of the family members' grandchildren like art? She could connect with them that way. That's a good thing to be curious about.
What else? Do we have other comments? When I'm also thinking as a provider, asking the DSP, if there is a DSP, to help understand more about that person's social history and social supports. Like, it's not always something, I don't know, Max, in your lived experience, it's not always something that we inquire about, and yet it's such a good and important part of health and overall well-being. And so it's good to know how socialization and friends and relationships work or don't work for this person, and for Keisha in particular. And so as a practitioner, as a clinician, I don't think we should shy away from those kind of questions.
Anything else anybody can think of? Anything? None? I hope people are, okay, here we go. Stacy says, I wonder where her relationships is like with her art teachers in school. That's a good question. Kelly says, when I worked in child welfare, we would sometimes help children create life books. Maybe she should create a book with pages for each person who has been important to her. It's a good way to take note of people that are important in your life or you trust in your trust circle.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah, I love the idea of also creating a book with pages for each person who has been important to her. And that's, sometimes looking at pictures is another way to stay connected to people. If you
Yeah.
have pictures of them and you're missing them or you're lonely.
Brian says, it is important to notice what relationships she finds to be her favorite and why. What are the aspects of the personality she gravitates toward? And what are those traits she prefers in others and what she struggles with?
What do people think of that?
When it comes to, relationships you have with people, that's a good thing to kind of wonder and keep in mind. Because you may have a relationship with somebody, but there may be something about them in that regard that may not be the best fitting for that person. And it's also good to kind of reevaluate. Kelly says that is great. She may not even realize what draws her to people. Yeah.
Yeah, and what draws her to people and what she wants, what she's trying to fill, like what she likes about some people, what draws her to those people, and then also what she feels like she needs, and then also what she gives to people.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's another way to look at it. And Stacy says, I agree, Brian. Seems like she has experienced the loss of a lot of important people early in her life. What meaningful relationships has she had in her life? Does she know what is important to her? And I would just say, you know, we're doing a lot of work in one of my other roles where I work for NASHBID, the National Association of State Mental Health Program Directors. We're doing a lot of work on grief and loss and really helping her understand, you know, as she's lost a lot of people and was moved into foster care and all that, you know, the ability to trust and feel connected without fear of losing people is really a challenge. And so it's really sometimes about helping people stay mindful and in the moment and connected to people that are in their life with and working with them around some of the anxiety that comes with loss. Brittany says, I absolutely agree. It could also help build her self-esteem as this kind of conversation comes up with her.
Mm-hmm.
Any other
These
thoughts? These are great. I'm sorry, Max, you were going to say something?
No, I was going to say the same question.
Any other ideas? I mean, I think this is great. Thanks, Max, for walking us through this case. Yeah, Nancy's right. The most important point is the 9 foster homes before the age of 12. She must feel very unloved and have
Mm-hmm.
very challenging time really feeling able to attach. That's just
Yeah.
a lot of like
It's-
floating out there without long-term attachments.
Yep.
That's really hard.
Yep.
Humans like to attach, and that's really hard.
Yeah.
That's a
No
really,
attachment, no connection. It's just they're more likely to, people are more likely to get lost.
yeah, it's some of the hardest things that people have to live with is social isolation and
Oh God. Yeah.
feeling alone.
Yep.
So I think,
Any,
can I just say what I had another
go
thought
ahead.
because of that, Max, just with the way you said it prompted me to think about just the need for real compassion as a clinician and a professional working with this person, and as anyone who's surrounding her, just really, because sometimes people who have difficulties with attachment may come off as cold or distancing because they don't trust necessarily. And so to other people, we don't want to take that personal. And we really want to meet that person with compassion and grace and recognizing that sometimes if we can amplify our warmth, it can help
Mm-hmm.
can help them feel warmth.
Yeah. Empathy too, and sympathy.
Yes, good point. Thank you for adding that. Right.
You're welcome.
Empathy.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else?
I think this was a really good discussion with some really good points, and we'll be able to take these ideas back to this, you know, with the steering committee and talk about all this.
I think so too. I think people came up with really good points too. So unless somebody may have something they want to say out loud that, or is maybe typing something in the chat. I am, or we are, I should say, are about ready to turn it over to Tim to take us home of this presentation. So
Yep.
Tim, floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Max.
You're
Good night,
welcome.
Tim.
Right. Thanks, Max, and thanks, Dr. Finals. I am Tim Tunner. I work for the National Association of State Mental Health Program Directors, a partner at the Link Center. I'm a middle-aged white guy without a whole lot of hair left on my head, although I have a beard, and I'm wearing a plaid shirt out of a whole bunch of different shades of light blue. So the first thing, if you could please go to resources, trainings, websites, anything you have where you go to get information about relationships, please add those to the chat. We do, we'll make note of them. The website for the Link Center and the resources, we're trying to grow those resources and to grow the website. So, we'd be very happy to get any suggestions, input, ideas you might have about any place where you go to for resources, for information about relationships. So here is the schedule of past and upcoming shared learning groups. You can find recordings and transcripts and material from past events on the Link Center website. You can also find and register for upcoming shared learning groups on the website. And the next topic will be on health and well-being, which is going to be in January. You can also visit the Link Center's website at any time. The address and link are here on the screen. And I see it's also been dropped into the chat as well. And you can also email the Link Center if you have any questions or suggestions, or if you have other ideas of resources, please send them to us. We do have a quick evaluation that we hope you'll all complete for us. On the screen is the QR code that you can scan with your phone. We'll also put the link for the evaluation in the chat, and it will pop up when we close today and will be sent out to everyone in an email. Your feedback on the evaluation really helps us make improvements and adjustments for future webinars and products for the Link Center. So please fill out that survey. We really appreciate you taking the time to do so. So thank you again for participating today. A special thank you to our colleagues, Victoria, Kelly, Nancy, Max, Deb. We would like to thank our steering committee as well for sharing their thoughts and experiences that are invaluable to these shared learning groups. Thank you also to the ACL, the Administration for Community Living, and to all of the partners from contributing to the preparation of and content for this meeting. So that is all we have today. Thank you very much, and hope everyone has a great rest of the afternoon and evening.